Hello, 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 hello. Welcome. Good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Hi there. Welcome back to another episode of Lou Reviews Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 2. Before we get started, want to say thank you to Mr. Pat DeRusso here for becoming a $5 YouTube member. Haven't seen one of those in a while. So thank you so much, sir, for contributing and loving the show so much that you decided to give us $5 a month and become a YouTube member. I believe it's $5 a month or $3 or something. Whatever it is. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Want to say, if you haven't already, smash that like button, follow, go check out the Twitch, check out the link for my Twitter handle. I've got a new Twitter handle if you haven't heard. So go check it out. It is in the link tree below. I updated it last night, and I put some links for yesterday's discussion in the description below as well. By the way, I went back and listened to that show, and I mean, not that I didn't think it was a great show. I thought it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. But I did notice that the sound needs a lot of work. And honestly, I'm using StreamYard to do all of the Lou Reviews episodes. But I'm going to be honest with you. The OBS software that I use for Twitch is way more customizable. And also, I've got just way better control of things like sound mixing while I'm doing the show. So I really apologize for that. I'm sorry. I hate it when I listen to episodes with terrible sound. So I know the first part of that show, I was talking over some of the music that I was playing, and the music was so loud you couldn't even hear me talking on the microphone. So apologies, but appreciate you for being patient or turning down the volume and sticking with it. It was a lot of fun, but I promise you, I will get that fixed. And it seems like we've got the camera issue figured out. Hopefully that'll stick around for the first hour of the show. I think I know what I need to do. It's literally just buying another cable. And I hope that the cam link issue is solved, but I plugged the cam link into the original plug that I had it into. So it seems to be working okay. Hopefully, like I said, that'll stick. Other than that, we've got a poll going on. If you guys want to see there was a tweet put out by Dean Johnson, who really knows his history and also he really provides wonderful breakdowns on the new NDA laws that have been passed, specifically regarding when it comes to UAP or UFOs. He's really great with breaking down what the laws mean, how they apply to real world stuff. He's a great follow, but he's also a historian in a lot of ways, and he has probably the best archive and information on everything you could possibly want to know about Bob Lazar, and a little bit about Jeremy Corbell too. And obviously, if you've been watching this channel lately, you know that I think they're both pretty much scam artists. They're lying through their teeth when it comes to the story they're telling. And Dean Johnson not only has a timeline of his own stuff that he's dug up, but there was also an article that he shared that I kind of wanted to read because I haven't had a chance. I've been working all day, but it's called Bob Lazar's Shadows. And yeah, it was written by Signal Intelligence, and it was a little blog post put on Medium. So I'm just going to read the first part of this and check out the poll. If you guys want me to read about this later tonight, I can totally do it because it sounds really interesting. This is the third in a series of articles resulting from over 50 interviews conducted with people who either know or knew Bob Lazar. have had a role in his history or claims, or would have knowledge relevant to Bob's story or claims if they are true. This article mainly explores the period prior to May 1982, when Bob and his wife Carol moved to Los Alamos, New Mexico. Through interviews with friends, co-workers, and Carol's family members, it aims to shed light on heretofore. I've never seen that word. I've never heard that word. Okay, interesting. I gotta look that up. To shed light on heretofore unknown aspects of Lazar's past, including Carol's criminal history. So this this was shared by Dean Johnson, and he posted a couple of articles with it on Twitter. Basically saying that Bob Lazar's first wife was 16 years his elder, if I'm not mistaken, or he was 16 years her elder. So Dean Johnson says deep dive research on Signal Intel at Signal Intel UFO shows that in 1980, Bob Lazar married a woman 16 years his senior, so 16 years older than him. Carol, previously convicted of second-degree murder for armed assistance to Hell's Angels and committing a brutal slaying. Why is this pertinent? ? So if you want to explore why maybe this could be pertinent, especially when it comes to Jeremy Corbell and the stuff that he peddles, I might be interested to dive into this. So if you want me to dive into this, take a vote on the poll right there, and we'll do it later tonight. Before we get started with the review of Mandalorian, want to say thank you again to Pat DeRusso. Thank you so much, man, for the membership. He says, "What's up, homie? Thank you again." Bam Bam FPV, who are you? Me or Lou? Yeah, I'm sorry. I have some crazy videos of UAP on my drone drive. Okay, cool. Well, post them and send us the link. My Twitter description is my Twitter handle's in the description below. So if you want to tag me in those videos, please do so. I'll always look at them. But yeah, it'll be interesting. All right, so Mandalorian season 3, episode 2. This might have been one of my favorite episodes. I got legitimate goosebumps for this one. I loved it. The episode opens on Amy Sedaris' character Pelimoto, excuse me. And she's scamming a Rodan alien, one of those green guys with the like pointy mouth, small mouths, and the big eyes. And he's basically come to her to fix a speeder. It's got missing parts. It's been jacked. Someone has come and stolen parts of his speeder, and he's like, brings it to her to get a good deal and try to get it fixed. And she's like, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to get these parts. It was a really funny scene. She says it'll be a 2-month turnaround. And then, of course, the guy gets like, what do you mean 2 months? She's like, well, for you, and I could put a rush order on it, and it costs you a little more. I could probably turn it around in, a month or so, but we'll see what we can do with it. And so the guy eventually agrees, leaves his speeder there. He walks out, and as soon as the coast is clear, she calls in the Jawas who stole the parts. They stole the parts, and they're selling it back to the guy they stole it from, through her being the third-party mechanic. And so they wheel in the parts, and they're going to paint them different colors. And she's like, and just pop them back on there, basically. It was really funny. And it's also in this scene, we learned that it's Bunta Week. I guess that's like a celebration within the Star Wars universe. It's Bunta Week. So it feels like a New Year's almost. And so, she's giving him a guilt trip about having to work on New Year's now because of his car missing parts and trying to do him the favor. Like, she's like really scamming him. It was a funny scene. And so after that happens, we get the Naboo fighter with the Mandalorian, Jin Djarin, and of course Grogu, and they land in her paddock, and he's basically there for the parts to the droid that he needs. And she asked the Jawas, and it was a cool scene too, where she speaks Jawa. It was really cool. And the Jawas is like, no, we don't. They like laughing basically at how old the part that he's asking for is. And she's like, they can't get it. But she has well, before they get into the whole robot discussion, Grogu is obviously happy to see her, and he does a Jedi force jump out of the ship into her arms, and it was an interesting moment. He actually did it twice in the episode, so you could tell that his powers are growing significantly, and so that was really cool to see. So after that, she tries to sell him her R5 D4 droid, which is like this, just it looks like an R2D2 almost, but it's an R5, and so it's a much older model. It just looks like a piece of shit, and she's basically selling him really hard on this droid. She's like, because he needs a droid to go to Mandalore and make sure that the air quality in the caves is okay for him to breathe, or even possible for him to navigate through. And so she's like, well, yeah, this droid does that. And what was funny is the droid obviously doesn't want to go, but it was just an interesting scene that, like, these droids in this universe are experience legitimate fear. Like they when they are afraid or expressing fear, it feels anyway like it's a genuine emotion. It's not just a programmed emotion or some sort of quirk that they program into these droids. It's like these droids have life. They are sentient beings in a lot of way, but the unwritten sort of slave class of the galaxy. And it's interesting. I mean, I know they touched on this in the Rian Johnson Star Wars universe, and I know that they also touched on this a little bit in the Ben Kenobi series. In both of those, I hated it. I really didn't like the way they were kind of force feeding that storyline in the film, because I felt like they weren't doing it because they came up with it. They were doing it because they were pushing an agenda that they felt like they had to glorify in their films for whatever their reasons were, right or wrong. And it just felt forced. Where when I'm watching this show, there are these little moments where the droids, you get the sense that they are real. The emotions they're having are real emotions. They're not programs. And so I just, this show just hits all of the right notes for me when it comes to Star Wars. It really does. It's not the best written show on the planet. It's not my favorite show ever to be produced, but it's a great show that gives me all of the nostalgia feels without it being forced or executed poorly. This show really is fucking awesome. Like, I cannot love this universe enough. And I really hope that Disney pays attention to this series and builds on it. I heard they're possibly bringing back Cara Dune. I think that would be a good move for this show. And I think I personally not a huge fan of Cara Dune, but I did like her in this role in this show. She fit perfectly in this. And the fact that she doesn't have the opportunity to do this because of some stupid stuff she said. And it was dumb, but it wasn't, Kyrie Irving dumb or Kanye West dumb. Like, it was dumb, but it wasn't that bad. And not bad enough, I think, to lose your job. Even so, to where people on the show were defending her and wanting her to stay and didn't like the move that Disney had made at the time. But I digress back to the show, it just gives me all of the right feels. And so, after she said in a really funny set of dialogue, she basically is giving him the story. She's like, please take him off my hands. And there's a great scene where she's like, what are you talking about? You're like a star. You're designed to be in starships. You're not designed to be in a garage here with me. Like, she's basically saying, like, no, this thing is supposed to be with you. It can do all of the things that you need it to do. It might look a little old, but I'll throw in this, and this, and give it to you for half the price because I like it. And Mandalorian agrees, and then boom, title card. And that's when I got my goosebumps, man. I was just like, dude, this score, the way that first scene was written, it's just got a nice pace to it. And if there's people complaining about this show, they're just too fucking picky, and they've never written or been around on a set to see how hard it is to write a TV show this good. Like, if you are watching a review where they're bashing this show, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and they've never been anywhere near a set ever. This is a good show. Great. Could be. It's definitely got the potential. It has its moments. It's really close. But I think this episode just gives me so much hope for the Star Wars universe. And it shows how well and how talented these people behind the scenes really are when you let them do what they want with a property and an intellectual property and a universe that is so rich with possibilities. Let the creative people create, and 7 out of 10 times you're going to hit home runs. I really do believe that. And when people like Kathleen Kennedy start coming in and meddling with things like she did, the difference between Boba Fett and the Mandalorian TV show, other than Boba Fett hasn't been renewed, and there's a reason for that, because it was the whole character of Boba Fett was basically destroyed in that show. Just like the whole character of Luke Skywalker was destroyed in the Rian Johnson post trilogy, original trilogy Star Wars. The shows or the films that they've been put in these newer situations completely go against all the lore and the character building that has been set in stone for the last 40, almost 50 years. So, yeah, don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I just got to say, I fucking love this show. Let's see here. If Peli Motto lived in America, she would drive an old school Mustang for sure. And she would definitely smoke cigarettes and eat breakfast every morning at a Waffle House. The Last of Us, best episode yet. And Mando, best episode. Good week. Excellent point, Pat. It has been an excellent week as far as TV shows are concerned. Yeah, I think these have been, as far as The Last of Us is concerned, this week's episode is my favorite. If you haven't watched my review of that, go check it out. I go over all of it. It's my favorite one. And so far, season 3 of Mandalorian, there's only been 2 episodes, but this has been really good. Okay, so let's get into the rest of the show. So they fly to Mandalore, and on the way, Mando's explaining to Grogu how important it is to know how to navigate the star systems. He's pointing out the planet, what it used to be like. We also learned that he's never been to Mandalore. He's never set foot on this planet. This is actually the first time he's going to go. And he points, to the moon that he used to live on, which is the moon of Mandalore. I can't remember the name of the moon, but yeah, he's essentially, he says to him, a Mandalorian has to understand maps and know their way around. That way you'll never be lost. And you could tell that this is like they're planting a seed for something else that's going to come in later down the episode. And so he explains how the fusion bombs, once they get into the atmosphere, it's essentially the outer atmosphere of Mandalore is like storms, chemical storms, and it looks pretty nasty. And then once you fly through that canopy, you see the destruction that the Empire has done to this planet. It has completely wiped it off the face of Mandalore. I mean, it is in complete tatters and ruins. You get a pretty decent shot of how ruined it is in this first sort of like establishing shot of what this planet looks like post Empire visit, and it's a hellscape essentially. And so they land, and again, the R5 unit is very nervous, very nervous. And funnily enough, Grogu is also nervous for the droid as Jin Darn tells the droid, okay, go take a sample out of those rocks and tell us if the air is breathable. And the robot's R5's like, no, I don't want to do that. And he's like, it wasn't a question, and drops him on the planet and forces him to go. And he comforts Grogu by flipping on this radar where he can. And what I also love about the technology in this film is that it pays homage and respect to the original Star Wars film, the 70s technology that they had access to when they first made Star Wars. And of course, you're like, now you look at the tech in Star Wars and you're like, does not look like the future at all. Parts of it do, but obviously parts of it do not. And it's been really nice how they take that analog 70s tech and implement it into a 2023 television show, and how they just little Easter eggs and how they just pay homage to the tech. I really like, and just hats off. I love those little icing on the cake kind of details when it comes to this show. So the gets him on the radar, and then all of a sudden, robot is lost. He's off the radar, and Jindarin's like, wait here, I'll go check it out. Pressurizes his helmet, so we learn that obviously his helmet is essentially like a walking scuba gear, so it's got oxygen that he can breathe while he roams around a planet like this. But I guess it has a time limit, and so that's why he wants to know if the air is breathable, because obviously that would make life much easier for him to get to where he needs to go. Anyway, so Mando walks into a cave and comes across like cavemen essentially. They didn't give them names, but they were basically cavemen, huge cave-dwelling creatures with clubs and big mouths and huge green crazy alien eyes. They were practical effects, and they looked cool. I didn't have any issues with them. So obviously, three of them come out. They attack Jindarin, and they get the upper hand on him, and so much so that he whips out the Darksaber. And what you realize real quick is that the Darksaber in his hands is insanely heavy. It's hard for him to wield it. You can tell, like, he needs two hands to wield it. And when he does swing it, like the weight of it, like, takes him with it. You can tell he has a hard time wielding it. He does use it to fend off these three alien creatures. And yeah, it was pretty cool. Actually, let's see here. I wrote down how they died. Okay, yeah. So he gets attacked 3-on-1. He pulls out the Darksaber. Mando ends up wielding the lightsaber, slices up the first guy, throws the second guy to his death, and then stabs the third guy with the dark saber and throws him off a cliff like he did with the second guy. It was fucking awesome. It was really cool. But in that moment, you could tell that Mando had a hard time wielding the saber. Um, he uh, he then um, he finds the droid, picks him up, they take him back to the ship, and the droid gives the readouts of the atmosphere, and turns out the air is breathable, and that Bo-Katan was right, that there was what does he say, yeah, he says that Bo-Katan was right, that there is it is possible to visit the planet, essentially. And so he goes back to the kid. Obviously, the air's breathable, so they go back into the cave. And as they're going through, there's a couple of scary little creatures and like sort of sewer dwelling kind of things. It's a very scary environment. The kids getting scared as they're navigating through this, and so Mando, as they're traversing through this underworld, essentially, Mando comes across what at first looks like a Tesla emblem, and it's a Mandalorian helmet. And he picks it up out from the ground, and he digs it out, and he holds it up, and boom, it's a trap. It's a droid that looks like a spider is underneath and grabs him, flips over, puts him in a cage, and even injects him with like a sleeping agent to knock out the Mandalorian and crawl back to the lair with him. It was actually pretty cool. I've never seen anything like that in Star Wars. It was CGI, but it looked good. It looked really cool. It was a cool trap. Yeah, it was interesting, and we're gonna get into what happens here. So you see, obviously, Grogu doesn't get seen by this creature, and kind of hangs back and follows him back to this, what is clear, a death lair. Whatever this thing is, it's been stripping Mandalorians of their armor, and just it doesn't care about the armor, just sheds it and puts them in this cage that looks like a spigot, like to roast it on a fire almost, but that's not what it's for. It's literally there to just cage in whatever its victim is. And we start to see kind of what it wants from it a little bit later on in the road, and we'll get into that. But um once the spider puts this thing on a spigot, it walks away, shuts down, and then I thought it was a droid, but it turns out there was something inside of it that, okay, so it's hard to explain what this thing was, because it was biological and it was also mechanical. So the closest thing I could think of that this reminded me of within the Star Wars universe was General Grievous. It even had grunts like Grievous. I'm kind of wondering if this thing is Grievous, or like some mutated, bare bones, no lightsaber version of Grievous that somehow ended up hiding on Mandalore, because it had the same exact grunts and mechanical sounds that Grievous had. But it was just basically an eye. Like it looked like RoboCop 2, where they take the brain and they put it into the robot. That's kind of what it looked like. It looked just like a brain that had a huge eye, and it was encased in metal and used this spider to protect itself. And then when it was vulnerable, it came out of this spider droid, and it starts so that's what the thing is. They don't really explain. They don't. At least I haven't looked it up. I don't know if this is a specific alien. If it is Grievous, I'd be interested to know what people's theories are as to what this thing was. But yeah, it was really cool. So um the creature walks away to go get, I guess, some tools or whatever it's about to go do, and Grogu comes up and tries to use the force to lift up the cage that Jindarin's in and pop him out of it, but it's too heavy and the cage falls, makes a noise, captures the attention of this creature, and Jindarin yells at Grogu, "Go find Bo-Katan." And so that's what Grogu doesn't hesitate. He jumps, he force jumps into his little floaty egg and takes off out of there, and goes straight to the ship. And on the way, all of those like creepy crawlies that were in the sewers, some of them pop out and try to eat him. Like, and he gets to the opening of the cave and runs into one of these. We learn what they're called. They're called Alamites, these cave dwelling like Neanderthals. He force pushes just he was able to just beat the shit out of this thing using the force, hops in the ship and navigates it back to Bo-Katan. So he's been paying attention, and you also realize that he's gonna be a Mandalorian Jedi, essentially. That's what he's training to be. He's using both his force powers and he's learning how to be a Mandalorian. And he's following the creed, essentially. I mean, they haven't given him an armor or a helmet. I'm not sure when he becomes of age, or if they're even gonna, if he's going to be accepted as a Mandalorian, or if he even wants to be a Mandalorian. But he's definitely training. He's understanding navigation. He's understanding how to use the Force. So he's becoming more powerful and a lot more independent. And that's what was kind of cool about the scene, is this is the first time that they've been split, and he's had to kind of rely on his own accord. So it was cool. So he makes his way back to Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan sees the ship coming down, thinking it's going to be Mando, and has the sort of speech already prepared of, "Didn't you hear me the first time? Get the hell out of here. I'm not interested in helping you." And she sees that the ship doesn't have the Mando in it, and it's just Grogu. It's just him, and she immediately knows something's wrong and says, "Take me to him." So Grogu takes, she actually gets the coordinates from their ship log, and then goes to Mandalore to go help find Jindarin. So they get there. She starts explaining the history of a little bit of the history of Mandalore, and how she essentially was a princess of Mandalore. And she had just been had taken the oath and the creed to be a Mandalorian. And then right after that is when the Empire came and destroyed all of Mandalore. And so, she's explaining that to Grogu, and in doing so, she comes across 4 of these cave dwelling Alamites, and that's she actually tells us what they are after she kicks their ass. And we also learn like just how badass Bo-Katan is, her stance, her fighting style, her fearlessness. She's fucking awesome. Like, we get to see Bo-Katan kick some major ass in this show, and it's great. So and she also like she looks at Grogu and is like, "What did your dad tell you? That he was the only Mandalorian in the galaxy?" Well, that's clearly wrong. So they come to the creature's lair, and Bo-Katan obviously confronts it, whips out, it gets the upper hand, knocks her down. She sees the dark saber that was basically, this creature was just taking things off that it didn't need, like the dark saber, the pistol, making sure that the Mandalorian didn't have any weapons, and just tossed them. So when she comes into the lair, she obviously, one of the first things she sees is this dark saber. And you also see the difference, her wielding the dark saber versus Jindarin wielding the dark saber. And there's no weight to it for her. She wields that thing as if it's belongs to her. And it does. In a lot of ways, it does belong to her. It is her by birthright. She's supposed to have that sword. And so she kills it, thinking it's dead, frees Jindarin, or is on the way to free him. And obviously, not obviously, what was really cool, she kills it, but turns out that this creature is like compartmentalized. It's got like different layers of protection. And so because you didn't kill the head detaches from the dead body and then crawls into the spider. And then the spider is now its body, essentially. And so Mando warns her, behind you, boom, this thing attacks her. And again, Darksaber just makes very short work of this robot, this killer spider crawling droid, that kind of sounds like General Grievous. It was a cool effect. It was really good CGI. Like, it was great CGI for a television show. And the Darksaber, you just see how powerful this weapon is. It's essentially a lightsaber, but it looks like a sword and it's dark. But it slices through anything, just like a lightsaber. And it's a cool weapon. It's a really cool weapon, and we finally get to see it in use in this episode. And so, yeah, it was a very cool moment. And you think, oh my God, how does this show get better now? Like, it's clearly good. We're going to go back down. We got to go to the the fountains, or the underwater waters of Mandalore, and he's got to take his bath and say his creed. And you think it's gonna mellow out, and man, holy cow, does it not. So she saves him, obviously, and after he wakes up from his coma, because we learn that this creature, whatever it was sucking out the blood of Pedro, or Jindarin's character. And we don't know what it was going to do with it, but I have a feeling it was something to sort of juice its own self up, because again, it was like biological machinery and it's living off of just scraps. You could tell whatever this thing was very savvy and knew how to survive, but it was just barely. It kind of reminded me of like Voldemort at his weakest. That's kind of what this creature felt like a little bit. And so, yeah, it was just, it was really cool. But so on the way, after he wakes up and he's like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta find the, what are they called? The underwater springs, the springs of Mandalore, where he takes his ceremonial bath and then he could be reborn and he's forgiven for all of his sins against the creed, taking off his helmet, and he can be a Mandalorian once again. And if he's got proof of that, and now he's got a witness to him doing it, he could become a Mandalorian, and that's all he cares about. And there's a really cool scene on the way down to the waters, where you could tell that Bo-Katan is really lost her hope and lost all sense of who she was, and has sort of based her entire family's existence and culture as superstition and just ghost stories. They're just stories. And she explains how her dad died defending Mandalore, and Jindarin stops in his tracks and he says, "This is the way." And it was a cool scene. You could tell that she didn't like that answer, because this is the way is what got her father killed. And she sees it as him being stubborn versus him fulfilling his duty and honoring his culture. And so there was they cemented how important the Mandalorian creed is in this scene, and why it means so much. And because before the Empire came, the Mandalorians, if they were united, they would have beat the Empire, but because they were divided and they were arguing, and I think they were arguing about similar things to kind of what we argue here, right? Like I think a lot of arguments stem from tradition and the stubbornness of sticking to traditions even when the current present times find the old traditions to be exactly that, old and outdated and antiquated, and in some ways and sometimes useless. And the old generation is saying, look, I know this seems old, I know this seems antiquated, I know this seems ridiculous, but when shit goes bad, these core values are what's going to bring us out of the darkness. And if we stray away from this creed, if we stray away from this culture, we're going to lose everything. And I think that's kind of the clash from an inner community standpoint, is the clash of traditions and having a new generation wanting to start new tradition. Like the idea of, what do you mean you can't take off your helmet? Like, come on, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, we should be able to take off our helmets. Just because we take off our helmets doesn't mean that we're no longer Mandalorians, or we can't live up to our oaths. And traditionalists are going to be like, that's not the way. And they cement it perfectly in this. And it's as Jin Darn is walking into the waters, he says this quote, and this is sort of the words he has to say as he's being rebirthed, essentially. And he says, I swear on my name and the name of the ancestors that I shall walk the way of the Mandalore, and the words of the creed shall be forever forged in my heart. And it was such an awesome scene. And during the scene, as he's taking this creed, you get shots of Bo-Katan, and I think she's coming to the realization that he's right. The creed, no matter how frustrating it is, no matter how antiquated it might seem, there is an honor in it, and there is something about it that got him the sword instead of her. He followed the creed to the T as best he could, and essentially got him the prizes and the title that she so desperately wanted. But because she lost her way, she lost the culture, she lost the Mandalorian creed, or she didn't respect it, she never ended up becoming the leader of the thing she wanted to be the leader of, which is her people. But if you don't respect your people's culture, so it was an awesome moment, and one of my favorite moments in all of the Mandalorian seasons, all 3 seasons. It was awesome. It was so great that the very next moment, it made me jump, because it was a genuine scare. Like, this show genuinely terrified me because I was not expecting this. Something pulls Jin Darn under the water. And before he goes into the water, he takes off his backpack, he takes off all of the mechanical things, and step by step jumps in, and then boom, this thing takes him under, and she jumps right in, and her jetpack propels her into the water, and it's deep. Like, this lake, this reservoir goes really deep, and she finds Jin Darn just lying at the bottom of this lake, and picks him up and begins to take him back up to the surface. And on her way up, we get the mythosaur. We get the mythosaur. I did not think that this was going to happen. But if you don't know what a mythosaur is, so the skull with the horns, the emblem that represents Mandalorian culture, it is the skull of the mythosaur. They reference this creature in the first episodes of the show, and he gets that emblem for taking control of that like one rhinoceros type animal. I forget the name of it, but he gets an emblem for taming the beast, for riding it. And they used to get stamps from the forger every time they would, part of their training was to take over and ride one of these mythosaurs. And let me read for you guys the canon legends explanation of mythosaurs, and it's fucking awesome. And I would love to see a Game of Thrones style universe prequel of all of this go back to this time. It's like an Old Republic kind of story. And so the mythosaurs were a species of animal native to the outer rim worlds of Mandalore. Enormous in size, the mythosaurs dominated the world until the arrival of Mandalorian Tang, led by the warrior known as Mandalore the First, in the campaign to conquer the world for their own. Mandalore the First and his crusaders slaughtered the gigantic beasts and drove them into extinction. The skull of the mythosaur became the symbol of the Mandalore, the traditional ruler of all Mandalorian clans, the planet Mandalore, and of the Mandalorians themselves for generations after. So they're not extinct, and we learned that. And this thing is massive. So I did not know that that's where this season was going to go, but we know for sure the very next episode, it's going to be a mythosaur fight. And it could be a 1 or 2, 3 episode arc on how the Mandalorians reclaim Mandalore and reestablish Mandalorians on Mandalore and rebuild. And the first step in doing that is doing what their ancestors did and destroying the last of the mythosaurs. And this one is huge. So I'm not going to give this episode a 10 because I cannot wait to see what happens in these next 2 to 3 episodes. But holy shit, this episode got a 9.7 from me, 9.7. Last week's was in the 7. This is a 9.7. This is one of the best Mandalorian episodes I've ever seen, other than maybe the Luke Skywalker episode. And this might be, I don't know, I'm going to have to watch both of them again. I think I like this one maybe a little more because of what it's setting up and what could be coming. And I love this show. I love this show. And if you're watching a review of people hating on this show, again, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like, they're just hating to hate. I know there's a lot of Star Wars content out there that deserves some of the hate. There's a lot of Disney content out there that deserves some of the hate. There's a lot of Disney content out there that's really good, and this is one of them. And I cannot recommend the show enough, especially in this 3rd season. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen in these next few episodes because, you know, they're going to reclaim Mandalore. They're going to reclaim it. And this is going to be that story, and I'm interested to see it. Clearly, Bo-Katan should be the leader of Mandalore, and she should be wielding the Darksaber. That Darksaber should be hers, and he doesn't give it to her in this episode. But I don't think he saw her wield it either. And so, yeah, awesome episode. Awesome episode, dude. Yes, this is live, SL. We are live right now. Hello, thank you for being here. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's check out the poll. Let's see how people voted on the poll. Let's see. Did I put up a poll? Where's the poll? I thought I put one up. Where is it? Oh, did I not put it up? What? Oh, I thought I put it up. You guys don't see one. Okay. The Bob Lazar show. Yes or no? Later tonight. Later tonight. There's an interesting article put up on Medium that talked about all of the well, it should be question mark, not period. But there is the poll there, guys. So 5 of you that are here, vote and let me know if you want to see this later on tonight. I'll probably do it around 6:30, I'm thinking. And yeah, because I want to read this article and I kind of want to read it with you guys because I think it's important. I think it's important that we know who Bob Lazar is and the people who push the Bob Lazar story because it's relevant to what they're pushing today. And it's the same kind of standard of evidence and lack thereof. But anyway, you guys, Mandalorian, episode 2, season 3. I hope you guys liked it as much as I did. I hope you guys enjoyed this review as much as I enjoyed doing it for you guys. This was a lot of fun. I'll see you guys tonight at 6:30. Do me the favor. I'm going to make a thumbnail and post a show here in the next 10 minutes. And I'm also going to post it on my Twitter account. So let people out there know that that's what we're going to be talking about tonight at 6:30. And yeah, that's it, you guys. Right? You guys have a great night. About an hour. And if you haven't already, thank you so much for being here and joining us on another episode of Lou Reviews, Mandalorian, Season 3, Episode 2. Next week, hopefully, we'll have either Carlos or some other friends here to talk about Episode 3. I know Jeremy will be back either next week for one of these, if not both shows. But until next time, you guys, have a great night. See you soon. Peace. So the poll says yes, 100%. With 4 votes in the poll, everyone votes yes. All right.